We'd like to start with some good news. The airline refund process, and specifically with Ryanair, has improved. It is not complete. It's not working for everybody. But compared to where we were when we first addressed this committee back in October 2020, the position is much improved. We attribute that in no small part to the coverage the item received when raised at this committee. And so we would like to thank you, Oireachtas and your committee members for your assistance in helping to resolve this issue. The travel industry, airports and airlines need clarity as to when we can restart trading with a safe reopening of international travel for our corporate and leisure markets. Hotels in Ireland need to know if they can accept international visitors in 2021. It's important to remember 75% of the income in the hospitality sector comes from the international market. Until such time as full restart plans are announced, we are very keen to support the regional airports of Cork, Shannon and Knock, and we call on the government to be generous in their support for all Irish airports and to support the pillar airlines that we rely on in Ireland. We have heard that Cork Airport would be closed for 10 weeks from September. To close a key regional airport just when international travel is restarting is not good. The EU Commission launched the Digital Green Certificates almost 2 months ago on March 17th. The EU Parliament last week voted to approve the certificates and recommended they be renamed EU COVID-19 certificates. This would be law in June and must be implemented by all member states within 6 to 8 weeks. This is a regulation and it is not a pick and mix option as mentioned by the Minister for Health on RT News last week. This is a mass harmonisation piece of legislation and the objective is to have travel within the EU reopen safely with all EU member states adopting the certificates. The Irish government must do this and in doing so they must revoke the advice against non-essential international travel. As referenced earlier this week on Monday, May 3rd, we also need to open up to travel in and outside of the EU. The UK and USA are core markets for our corporate and leisure travel. The EU Commission announced a plan for Schengen member states to allow travel from fully vaccinated people, and we urge the Irish government to adopt this proposal. As things stand, it's illegal to travel to a port or airport for non-essential travel. And if you do so, there is a fine of €2,000 per person. There are 35 different statutory instruments implemented since January of this year that control and limit international travel. We need a plan and a commitment to unwind these statutory instruments once the vaccination rollout hits the level of 82% by the end of June, as is the current target. An Taoiseach in the Week in Politics last week said, "We cannot seal off the island forever. We are an interconnected global island." Taking all that into account, as well as the improving position in our hospitals, the overall levels of COVID and the positivity around the vaccine rollout, Ireland needs to implement the EU COVID-19 certificates in full and without delay, and to open up to international visitors and to allow Irish citizens the right to travel, at least within the EU to begin with. We want to note our concern around the costs of PCR testing. At approximately €100 per person, we think PCR test costs are too high. They are anti-family and a cost deterrent for international travel. We are surprised to see that the Irish government has not adopted the recommendations of the Ferguson report on antigen testing, and we note the irony that the HSE themselves are using antigen testing in some facilities. One important consideration around continued travel restrictions in the Republic is that international travel will recommence from Northern Ireland's airports sometime between mid-May and mid-June. We have already seen Ryanair opening a new base in Belfast City Airport, adding 10 new routes. Moving assets from the Republic is a very easy thing to do for both Aer Lingus and Ryanair. And this is because both airlines have been forced to do so, given there is no plan to open Ireland for international travel. Bookings for international travel are still around 85% down. There'll be no recovery until consumer confidence returns. No other sector has had little or no income since March 2020. Irish hotels had some income last summer, travel agents had none. And being 85 to 95% down is effectively minus income, as our cost base, even with massive reductions, is still substantial. We have met with transport ministers, all political parties, and countless TDs and senators, all of whom have been understanding and sympathetic to our plight. But what pocket do we put that into? Sympathy and understanding are not something we can pass on to our landlords, our IT providers, insurance companies, and the staff we must retain. There is a 6 to 9 month delay between booking and travel, which means that our sector must work for 6 to 9 months before we actually count the income generated from advance bookings. So long as there's no income, the travel industry needs to see ongoing support from government. We are getting the wage subsidy and CRSS. CRSS needs to be repurposed and linked to the guidance on international travel, and we do hope to see extensions of support beyond the 30th of June. The travel industry needs to see supports continue until we no longer meet the qualifying criteria. The support is needed now ahead of the restart to financially rebuild in order to reduce our dependency on the state. Without ongoing and targeted sector-specific supports, there will be more failures in our industry. There's no need for that to happen. Customers have full protection because all travel agents are licensed and bonded, so additional support would prevent company failures. One last point before I finish. There's something we need to bring to your attention, and it is because of COVID-19 and the impact on the travel industry, some merchant service providers are taking a very hard line and demanding substantial cash deposits from travel agents. This is a direct challenge to the bonding and licensing arrangements which the government has in place for travel agents. Some of the companies involved are associated with our partially state-owned banks. This is a very serious issue for the sector, and the government must address this, given they have poured millions of euro into supporting this sector during the pandemic, only to have the very future of the sector put at risk by these staggering demands for cash security. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.